Paul, I think you're in. I see you.
I think I'm in. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hear you on the line, yeah. I hear you on my phone. I hear you on my phone. I don't hear you on the connection. Try again.
Hello.
Okay, great.
Not sure what that was all about. Yeah, thanks, Jacob. I got it.
All right, so we have 6 viewers. It's 5:40 p.m. and welcome everyone to Drinks to Discover. We're going to be talking to ASAE YPs in different career stages today. And at this point, I'll hand it over to Paul, who will be moderating today. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Sorry, guys, about the delay. Apparently, we can't figure this out. I think that's a good lesson to always make sure you have everything updated and make sure you've got a backup web browser to use. I'm in Internet Explorer right now, which is usually a big no-go for me, but apparently it's the only thing working. Thanks for those who have joined today to watch us and listen to us talk about some of the different career stages and career paths in the association industry. And for those who will be watching this hopefully later, I hope that the sage advice from our wonderful speakers will resonate and really speak to you as you continue along in your career journey. So with me today, I have Lindsay Curry. Sorry, we didn't have a little thing where I could like make sure I knew everybody how to pronounce everybody's name. But Lindsay is the Director of Stakeholder Engagement at the Regulatory Affairs Professional Society. We have Natasha Bethia, who's the Senior Manager of Membership Recruitment and Retention at the Association for Psychological Science. That's quite a business card you must have there. And Thomas Cote, who's Vice President of Strategic Development and/or Executive Director at the Academy of Sports, Cardiovascular, and Wellness Nutrition. Thanks everybody for being here with us. First thing we're going to do is we're drinking to discover. So we're going to talk about what we're drinking. This is the Full Nelson Pale Ale, which is from Nelson County, just outside of Charlottesville, Virginia, which is home to Wintergreen Resort, which is where we occasionally will go to ski and snowboard and hike and go to wineries and obviously go to breweries. And that's what we're drinking. So I'm going to ask Lindsay, why don't you introduce yourself, let us know what you're drinking, and maybe talk about where you're working and how you got to that point.
Sure thing. So I have Santa with me here. He's filled with a nice spiced cider. I'm trying to get in the mood. My association is launching a new AMS and CMS 2 weeks after we get back from Christmas break. So my cup needs to be filled often right now. But I've been at RAPS for it's just about 2.5 years now. Again, I'm the Director of Stakeholder Engagement there, which means just anyone and everyone I engages with our association kind of passes through me at some point. Prior to that, I was at a higher ed association where I was the Director of Communications and Membership. And the step before that, which is what really got me into associations, is I was working at a communications firm and had several associations clients, and they were kind of my favorite place to engage and clients to work with, and pulled me into the association side.
Awesome. Thank you for joining. How about Natasha? Are you drinking anything? I see you're still, looks like you're still in the office. But tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, hi everybody. Again, my name is Natasha, and today I am drinking Blue Moon because that was the only thing in the fridge. So no fancy stories behind that. So currently I'm the Senior Manager of Membership Recruitment and Retention at the Association for Psychological Science. I actually just started working there, so I've been there since December 1st, so I'm a newbie. Prior to that, I was at the American Nurses Association, And like most people, I fell into associations randomly. After I graduated from college, I started working for a direct marketing firm who a lot of our clients were associations. And then from there, I just kind of got sucked into the work. So I definitely love working for associations.
Excellent. Join the club, right?
Yeah.
All right, Tom, my man, how about you? What are you drinking? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
You guys can hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
I'm having some red wine from Lisbon, Portugal, and you'll see this little, picture behind me is also from Portugal, where we went last year for Thanksgiving.
You.
And my dog is trying to be on the Skype too right now. I tripped and fell into associations like the rest of us, and I actually started in the New York State Assembly as a legislative intern, and then I was the person who the advocacy groups came in to lobby, and realized that it was a smart career path to go on the other side of the table, and did government affairs for a couple of associations before I moved into the C-suite. I was the executive director of a New York State Psychological Association prior to my role here, which I've been at for about a year. So happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. And of course, I'm a terrible host. I told you what I was drinking, and I didn't actually introduce myself or say where I am and where I'm from. So I'm Paul Leahy. I'm the Associate Director of Membership and Component Relations at the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Yes, that's a long title. I've been there about almost 10 years next fall, and worked my way up from membership outreach to component relations, and then kind of put everything together and wrote my own job description for what I'm doing now, which is something I really enjoy. I'm also immediate past chair of the Young Professionals Committee, a role that I enjoy a lot more than being chair of a national committee. And then I've got a lot of committee members and both of the YPC and other groups participating on the call today. Seems like a nice segue, pardon me, to one of the topics we thought when we were planning this call is talking about how volunteering is in a lot of ways a pathway to professional success. So I'm going to start with Lindsay. Lindsay, tell us a little bit about your volunteer journey and how that sort of informed and moved your professional development and career development along.
Yeah, so, coming from an academic world, right, that was my first association, I kind of saw what it was doing for my members' careers and was like, oh, there's got to be something like this for me, right? I was used to people writing articles and meeting for 2% at conferences and tried to find a similar home for myself, and that's kind of when I first stumbled upon ASAE, and did a small volunteering opportunity where I was one of the judges for the Power of A Awards, and found that to be so rewarding because it was such an opportunity to see like what everyone else that was the best at what they were doing was working on, and was like, oh, this is like a breath of information, right? I'm giving back, but also I'm getting a ton of examples and great ideas as I'm participating in this. And so from there, I signed up to volunteer for the Gold Circle Awards. I was also a judge from there, and then joined the Gold Circle Awards Committee, which I really enjoyed and wanted to find something that could be, maybe a little bit more related to the job I was working on, but also give me some leadership experience. I am now fourth year on the Communication Section Council. I'm currently the chair of the ASAE Communication Section Council. So that's a little bit about the pathway for engaging, but the value of it for me has been tremendous. One, I think it gives you a whole host of connections that you might not have engaged with easily otherwise. It's a concentration of all of the best that are doing similar things to you. So it's a great host of resources and connections. I find it to be people that I often call when I have questions about what I'm doing in my own career or at my own job, because these are people that are also experiencing similar things. But few years ago, I was a few years into my time on the communication section council and actually was reached by a recruiter for my current position. And the recruiter told me they found me because of my association with ASAE and sitting on this council. So it's been a tremendous investment for me personally and professionally, spending time giving back.
That's great. That's such a great story that I think resonates with a lot of us who have been involved, particularly with ASAE, but just generally with other organizations. Tom, you have some background with some of the state level SAEs. Can you talk a little bit about your involvement there and how that's kind of enriched your professional development and career path?
Absolutely. So I'm from Albany, New York. So we are part of the Empire State Society of Association Executives, which I will call the SAE. Albany is obviously the capital where a number of the associations are housed. Having worked in a number of associations, I realized that SA was kind of the first line of defense. Those that live in the DC area or in the Chicago area kind of have these much larger nationally based organizations that they can interface with very quickly. Those of us that aren't from those areas, you find that it's a lot easier to just get to your state SAE. So the first thing I did when I got involved in my state SAE is I joined the Young Association Professionals group that they already had kind of up and running. I quickly became chair because no one really wanted to do it. But the first thing we did was to do a real assessment of how we can engage young people. I took that assessment and I presented it to the board. Not long after, the board of the state SAE said, we need someone young on the board because we need this perspective that you bring. So I joined the board not long after that, and then very soon after that, I became chair. So I'm actually chair of my state SAE right now for another couple of months until my year ends at the end of February. So I found that one of the things that's really great about a state SAE is when you're looking for executive directors or high-level positions or even mid-level positions, a lot of people go to the state SAE, and ask who's looking, who's around, who's available, who has these skill sets. And because they're smaller than your national groups, it's a lot easier to find people. So, I told the executive director of my state SAE, if there's a CEO position of a small association that wouldn't mind a young person who's a new CAE, that would be, does a lot of lobbying because I have a lot of experience with that, let me know if that comes around. And because of the connections I made, I got my first, ED job when I was 29. And it was a great experience, although I'll talk later in the call about the many, many mistakes I made and looking back, the regrets that I have. But nonetheless, the state SAE, I think, is a great place. I did not know anything about ASAE until only a couple of years ago when the state SAE said, why don't you go to the national and check out what's going on? We have a free coupon code you can use. We all know how expensive ASAE can be, so I said, why don't I check it out? And that's where I got to know Delp, and I got to know Paul and Tammy and a bunch of other of the YP folks in Detroit. And here I am today. So I will say that the state SAEs, if you're not from DC or Chicago, are a great way to get yourself involved. And I will tell you, and I say this to everybody, I think that Albany and living in a smaller city has a lot to do with my success. I think if I was in DC or in Chicago, I would be a small fish in a big pond. But it's a lot easier to stand out in a community that has a lot less people involved.
Yeah, you put the euphemism right on my mouth.
Indeed.
That's actually a really great background. And just to piggyback on Tom, for those who are not in the DC area who are watching this either live or will be watching it later, definitely check out your state SAE. That's redundant, isn't it? Check out your get involved, because like Tom said, sometimes it's really great to be a small fish or a big fish in a small pond rather than the other way around. I want to turn it over to Natasha now. Now, Natasha, I know that you've been involved obviously on YPC, and then I think you've also been involved in Next Gen. Can you talk a little bit about your volunteer experience and how that helped you with your career?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to start off by saying just being a part of ASAE has been amazing. And going into 2017, I wanted to find a way to get even more involved with ASAE. So I found out about the Next Gen program. And for those that don't know, Next Gen is a program where ASAE selects young professionals across the country to spend a few days together, kind of talking about the state of associations, trends, and how as young professionals, we can, raise the profile of ASAE and just talk about how we can just do great things. And I would say that was probably like the top 3 things that stand out this year. One of the things was I got engaged. So I got engaged, I got a puppy, and I went to Next Gen. And I have some Next Geners on the line right now. But I believe that it was just such a great experience because I was able to be face to face with different association executives that are doing amazing things and finding ways how I can get even more involved. I felt like just by being there that I had a hand on how, associations are going to be shaped in the future. And I had a hand in learning more about how I can bring more young professionals to the table to take advantage of these opportunities. Also, just leaving there, I just felt empowered to do more. And I think that's probably what led me into my next role here because Next Gen was in September and I'm in my new role here in December. So Next Gen was amazing. And just, yes, thank you. And just being a part of ASAE as far as for volunteering, I definitely was a content leader at the annual meeting, and a lot of young professionals get a little intimidated by that because, hey, we're young professionals. What can we bring to the table? You can bring a lot to the table, and I think by me being a young professional, that might have been, a big reason why I was selected because a lot of young professionals don't apply to be content leaders. So I definitely recommend if you have something to share, put in a proposal in, like we want to hear your voice. So use every opportunity you can to give back to the association community and, get your face out there.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like to call that doing well by doing good. When you put others first, a lot of times that can come back and enrich. I mean, obviously it enriches your personal life, but it can occasionally enrich your professional life. Shout out Next Gen class of 2016. What?
2017.
2017.
Even though I'm not a speaker, this particular topic really is a passion of mine and volunteering. So just briefly, I'm going to talk about how I've been involved with ASAE and the Young Professionals Committee now for, like 5 or 6 years, really aging myself. And for those who are kind of on the fence about the decision to volunteer, it's just opened up so many doors. I can go to my boss, like if I don't have funding to go to annual and be like, hey, I got to go. I have a committee meeting. I'm giving back. I'm doing this great stuff. And you can get funding sometimes that way. And you can really like win over your immediate boss or your boss's boss by showing the initiative and showing that you're willing to put yourself out there and to give back and to really grow as a professional. So on that note, I kind of want to ask my speakers here, in no given order, just jump in. What piece of advice would you give someone who's maybe on the fence about volunteering?
I would just happy to jump in. I think one of the first examples I gave was being a judge on an awards committee. They also do judging for annual or MMCC, like tech conference, and those are real small ways to, you give them 5 or 6 hours, you get a taste of what it is. You get some, professional benefit to yourself, and you can kind of work your way in there. So it gives you a little bit of an opportunity and a taste, but not a long-term commitment, and you can move on from there.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I'll add to that. One of the things that go ahead,
No,
Natasha.
you go. Okay. I think this is going to segue into our next. So you go.
Okay. I want to. It's sort of parlaying into the last section, but one of the things that I did when I started volunteering with association focused organizations is I purposely volunteered in areas where I was not strong. And I did that so that I could meet folks that could be mentors for those areas, because I truly believe mentoring is not a one-on-one, it's like a 5-on-1. You take people that have strengths and you kind of use them for those in particular. But one of the things for me was meeting planning. I'm horrible at meeting planning because it's so incredibly detailed that sometimes I fall short. I'm a big picture guy. So I started saying, let me be part of a conference committee, or let me be part of something that I can build my skill set. And this way, if you're looking for a job that incorporates a lot more, where you're trying to promote yourself that way, you can say that, well, you didn't do it in your everyday job, you did it in a volunteering role. So I think you can also volunteer in things that might not be your strength.
That's a great point.
And then for me, I would say just the networking alone from volunteering. Sometimes you might not get that opportunity to get in a room with top people, but when you actually put yourself out there to volunteer, you have that opportunity to have your seat at the table. You have that opportunity to meet your next employer or meet the next person that's going to inspire your career to go to the next level. So just being around top people that are shooting for greatness, I think that's the best thing ever about volunteering, because it's like, when will you ever get to be in the presence of these people? So that's why I love volunteering so much.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just a final plug for those who are either watching live or hopefully will be watching the recording later.
Good, thank you.
I love how the active speaker switched over at the sound of the wine in the.
I have no idea how that happened. It was a fairy.
Yeah, right. But just a plug for those, like, particularly who want to get involved with ASAE, is to check out Collaborate and then find the volunteer square through Collaborate, and you'll find either the micro short-term volunteer opportunities or the year-round committee opportunities, and just put your name out there and just put in for a committee. I think a lot of them run on that like August to July on the annual meeting schedule, but there are some that run at staggered times throughout the year. So just check it out, and if you've done your networking correctly, hopefully you'll know somebody on one of those committees that'll put you on, because that's usually the way that it works. And then also I would say look for other opportunities to volunteer. It doesn't have to be just ASAE. There are other people in the nonprofit association space. I'm thinking YNPN, the Young Nonprofit Network, Young Nonprofit Professional Network.
Yeah, professionals. Yeah.
They have a national organization, and then they have chapters in most major cities. So check them out. And then obviously any other volunteer experience that you have. It doesn't have to be limited to associations. But I think in this particular topic, we really hit on something very important, and that's networking as a tool for professional development and your career development. I know that Natasha has really networked really well and really parlayed that into a really good job. So I want to ask her, what did you do? How did you network, and how did you land a really great job because of that?
Oh yeah, I love networking. I love meeting new people. I love picking other people's brains. And my dad always used to say, it's not about what you know, but it's about who you know. So one thing that I found when I was like reading this article, it said that studies show that 80% of jobs are not advertised. Mm-hmm. It's all about who you know to get that next position. So for me, like I said, I went to Next Gen, and when I went there, I met my mentor. Shout out to Dante Shannon.
Oh yeah, Dante.
So he definitely helped me prepare for, just stepping back into the job market, preparing for interviews, making sure my resume was up to date and everything. And also, I actually got another job offer for somebody from my Next Gen class. So it was just amazing just being a part of that. And for me, I think the networking that was really big in my next position was just Dante helping me out, and my employer, my new boss, she's actually an ASAE member. So by her being an ASAE member, by her seeing how much I'm involved with ASAE, it was kind of like a no-brainer. So I definitely, tell people to get out there. And even when you're at these conferences and meetings, sometimes it can be a little intimidating to step out and talk to people you don't know. But I'm telling you, especially in ASAE, everybody's nice. Everybody will give you advice. Everybody would, laugh with you. So just get yourself out there and don't be afraid. I'm nice. If you see me out, say hi.
Yeah, and for those who have not met Dante yet, make sure you do. Nicest guy ever. really great experience, really top level executive who's willing to talk to you and mentor you and get you past that next step that you're trying to do. So for those who are watching now, and then of course those hopefully will watch it later and are thinking about going to annual, definitely go to annual, definitely find Dante, and definitely introduce him. I'm just going to throw this out. Actually, let me back it up. Tom, Lindsay, do you have any thoughts on networking as a tool for professional development before I kind of throw out the general questions?
If you do, Lindsay, go first. You haven't spoken in a while.
Sure. No, so unlike Natasha, networking is not my favorite thing to do. So finding the right environment in which you can network, like don't just put me at a cocktail hour and a drink because I'm going to stand in the corner. It's not my thing. So finding the right venue, that there's not just one type. So that was really finding my niche and where to do it. So one of the things I actually really enjoy is connecting people. So finding people that are looking for different staff and positions. And so this year alone, I think I've connected 5 colleagues and 5 new positions, right? Which then broadens my network by 10. So it's finding those right things for you, and then you're the person they think of as they do it. Going to Next Gen, it was a much more smaller environment where you're really seen as the expert sitting at the table and people are interested in hearing what you have to say, and it was much more laid back. That's my kind of thing. So I wouldn't just go to one cocktail hour and say, I'm bad at networking, I don't like this. It's rethinking it and finding the right venue for you to interact with people.
Yeah, that's a great point. And before I open it up to Tom, I'm just going to check that because apparently that's what I do. A good friend of mine a member of my own association that I talk to a lot, she reminded me that like it's not even just the professional arena in which you can and should network, but get involved in clubs that have nothing to do with your job. Like join a sports league, get involved in your church or other local organizations, because you can really expand your network. And you might find that somebody you had no idea what they do for a living has something to do that you would be really interested in, and you've made that connection and possible, future opportunity there. So that's my advice. And let me turn it over to Tom. Do you have anything you want to add in terms of networking?
I think you have to be very careful about going to a networking session and feeling as though you're just out there looking for a job. I think it's important that your message and your kind of your personal brand is, this is what I'm good at, this is what I want to do in the future. So you have to make sure, A, you're not disparaging your current employer by saying I hate it because, or I want to get out of there because. But you're also talking about, I'm really, really great at marketing. I would love to be, the director of marketing at an association, or I really love parks and recreation, so I want to do something environmental, or, so something along those lines, so that when people hear of jobs or people are talking to their colleagues, that specific thing pops up in their mind and they say, oh, I know someone that's interested in that. Because it's more important that you find something that's a good fit rather than just jump into it. Again, we'll talk about my mistakes later.
Yeah, and Tom, I think that's such a great valuable point about not going into it as like, oh, I need a job, or oh, I'm at a crossroads, I don't know what to do, what have you. This is going to be a shameless plug. So the Young Professionals Committee plans and hosts the Taste of, insert city name wherever the ASAE annual meeting is. And so we launched this in Detroit. We did a Taste of Detroit, and we had John Hockman, well-known ASAE fellow, really great guy, incredible consultant, has such a great line for association management. And he said one thing to me that I will never forget. He said that people on the East Coast will go to these networking events and they ask, what do you do? Who are you with? What do you do? People on the West Coast, they go to these reception meetings and they ask, what do you like to do? Right? Because when the conversation is more organic and you find those things that you have in common outside of work, it will usually come back to work if that's the way it's meant to go. You don't have to be that guy that's at a networking reception just trying to get a job, right? So that's my advice to people listening. It's to start conversations genuinely with people that you want to talk to about things that actually interest them and interest you.
It's because it's about relationships, truly. And you have to build those relationships first. Someone can put their name on you so you can get a job. I'll never forget my first job out of the legislature was a government affairs position. And my boss said to me, do you want to be director of government affairs or director of government relations? And I said, well, I like relationships better than affairs. And it's truly what it's about, especially in the association space, which we all are.
Excellent quote. Somebody got that on fire, right? All right, so Tom has been beating around the bush and teasing us all chat about the lessons that he learned. I'm gonna kick it to Tom. So, what's the end goal here? Is the C-suite really the end all be all?
No, not at all. One of the things that really bothers me about some of the rhetoric you hear in some of the circles that we're all involved in is, do you want to be CEO one day? Let's be a CEO one day. Let's make sure you can get that CEO level position. It is not all about that. And I will tell you that I jumped into a CEO role. I had the CAE, so I was sort of prepared theoretically. But I will tell you that I went to my first CEO interview specifically for CEO interview experience, not expecting at all to get the job. And I got it, and I thought, great, I'm going to be executive director. Thomas J. Cote, executive director. And I was title chasing. And that was only a few years ago. And the truth of the matter is that the CEO should not be the end-all be-all. We always talk about it being the end-all be-all, but it truly isn't. The first of all is all the weight's on your shoulders. Your number twos and your number threes, they have a lot better work-life balance and a lot less stress at work because they don't have to worry about that pressure and that weight of the world on their shoulders. Second off, you don't have to be good at everything. As a CEO, you have to be moderately good at everything. There's no way to be good at everything. So if you're great at membership, or you're great at legislative affairs, or you're great at IT, you're great at something that an association needs, so be the top person in that for that specific channel. You don't have to be the CEO of everything. I will tell you that I like I said, I title chased, but at the same time, I also went in and was very naive to the politics of associations. Now, granted, I work for psychologists, and psychologists, have their own nuances about them. But nonetheless, it was an interesting learning experience for me. But I will also say that I would not look back with specific regret on any of the behaviors or the decisions that I made, but I will look back and think, well, I wish I had taken a step back and not listened to what everyone was saying about a specific member, or didn't just do it because it's how we always did it. It was more important for me, I think, back then to just kind of stay under the radar because I felt somewhat inexperienced. But at the same time now, I look at it and say, I will never make those mistakes again. I'm a lot better for it. And I can sort of humble myself now rather than look back and think that I failed. All I can say is I left that association. They had more members than they did when I started. They had more money in reserves when I started, and they passed 2 legislative bills that they had been working on for 20 years. So I left with success. Moving on, now I'm at a national association, and I'm at an AMC, which is completely a completely different kind of atmosphere and environment to live in. But nonetheless, it's fun now because I can specifically be an association guy rather than nutrition or psychology or anything else. So I do like where I am now, thanks to where I was before.
Yeah, that's great. And before I take it over to Natasha, I'm curious, Tom, because other people in the chat and the channel might be curious as well. What drove you to the decision to work for an AMC? Did you have pros and cons? How has it been different so far than working for just a regular professional association?
Well, there was 2 things. The first thing was I really wanted to work in a national association and perhaps even run one. In Albany, we don't have many, so an AMC provides you that opportunity to work with national associations. So that was the first one. The second thing is I really like association management rather than specific to a content area. And the role that I was offered here in Albany at an AMC was Vice President of Association Management and Strategic Development. So I not only do I have my own clients, but I also manage the association management portfolio. So it's all about association best practices rather than having to know what communications and technology professionals do or what other dietitians do or whatever other clients are. So it was really twofold, and it's been nice to be able to do a little bit of both.
Yeah, that's great. So shifting over to Lindsay and Natasha, what's the end goal here? Do you have a plan? What's your idea for success in your career at this point?
One day at a time. I think as Tom was alluding to, right? Like, yeah, for some extent in the last few years, right? I think you're hoping for your next title and trying to just figure it out. One, I think early on in your career, right, you're just trying to make enough of the money to survive, right? So that's why I think you get to the point where you need to take some time and sit back and say, what is the next step? Where do I want to go? And I'm sort of in that place now, right? I've had 2 director level positions, right? So, that means you're VP next. Well, not necessarily. So taking some time to really, for me, I think is essential is the culture fit in wherever I go next. So title and, experience is somewhat part of it. Like I don't want to only be working with members moving forward. I'd like to do some more of the strategic planning portion of it. But I think the farther along you get in your career and the more involved you are in that strategic level, the culture of an organization really plays a critical role in your want to stay there and what you get out of it. So really spending time, and I think it comes back to that networking element. The more people you talk to, the better feel you get for what other associations feel like. So you might have a goal association you want to work at because you really are driven to engage with that kind of culture. So thinking about it more than just in the position, what other elements are you looking for in the next step? And that's what I'm currently working on.
Yeah. That's great advice. What about you, Natasha? Have you thought about the end goal and where you?
Yeah, for me, it's all about spending every day doing what I love. Because if I don't love it, I don't want to do it every day. So for me, I see myself being a career coach. I just really, I just seeing my journey and seeing other people's journey, it really inspires me. And I feel like a lot of information is not out there, especially for young professionals that they need or the stories that they need to hear. And I kind of want to be that voice and be that mentor. So I kind of see myself, going to that career coach level, specifically with association and nonprofit management. Currently, I'm going to grad school for that. I love the association space. I love the nonprofit space. So I want to stay there, but if there's a way that I can help young professionals or anybody in their career kind of advance to the next level or figure out just what do they want to do, whether they want to work in membership, whether they want to go to the C-suite, or whether they want to do public affairs, whatever it is, I want to help people find that. And that would be a way that I feel like I'm giving back.
That's awesome. And let me know when you set up your consulting firm, because I definitely need a career coach. And I hope you guys don't hear my kids screaming upstairs. So
I have a question for Tom. Tom, can you hear me?
Tom, you're on mute, buddy.
Yeah, I was on mute. Sorry, I can hear you.
Tom, I was just curious. Your current role right now was ASAE helpful in you getting this new role, or did they play a role?
I will say that I think my involvement in DELP and the exposure that I have on a national stage definitely helped the AMC think that my name recognition or my involvement with a local AMC as opposed to a national one might help. It's something that they do tout as is part of the the leadership team they have at the AMC. I mean, we have 50 staff now, but it is still kind of small and local compared to some other ones. So I will say ASAE probably helped. But as far as the networking is concerned, the networking that got me the job was all local. So not for networking, but definitely my involvement in ASAE probably helped them want to hire me even more.
Sure. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, that's great. So I have a question. I'm going to throw it out to all the speakers. Actually, hold that thought. Everyone has seen Majeda here, and she hasn't said anything, so I want to give Majeda an opportunity. Can you introduce yourself and kind of tell us what
Sure.
you've been thinking?
I'm sorry, everyone. I was so frustrated in trying to get everyone on this call. I was doing all of the tech, and I forgot to introduce myself. So my name is Majeda. I helped select the speakers for today's Google Hangout session. I am currently based out of New Jersey. I work at IEEE. That's a really, really large association, and IEEE stands for Institute of Electronics and Electrical Engineers. So we do everything tech, and I am the Senior Awards Program. So every year, our board of directors presents really high-level medals to engineers that are helping make the world a better place, whether they're inventing the GPS or the phone, camera, digital camera. We're helping present awards and recognize these individuals. So they call it the Disneyland of IEEE, and it's a lot of fun to work at.
Excellent. So I'm going to throw a few questions out here, and I'm just curious because much as many of our viewers right now, I'm learning and getting to know the speakers the same as you. I mean, I've known them off and on through various, but I'm curious, what's something from your personal life that has enhanced your professional life? And so an example for me is that, and this is really geeky, but I really like puzzles. And so I work on jigsaw puzzles, and I like to see that as like when you have a project and you have volunteers and you have people and you got to try to find, what the overall picture looks like, but you can't figure out how to get there, and you need to put the people in the right place to get there. And that's the challenge, is how to do that. So Lindsay, Natasha, Tom, what's something from your personal life that you feel enhances your professional life? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys see me? I know that I think Majeda is frozen.
I'm here. I will say, I wasn't the most popular kid, so for me, I feel like now I had a problem for the past couple of years saying yes or saying no to said yes to everything, but that actually ended up being a complete blessing. The truth is that people knew I was available and willing to step up to leadership positions, and they utilized. While it was a little overwhelming for a few years, I'm here now, and I'm proud of where that has gotten me. So I think I also am a one of 7 children. I was really your parents' attention all the time, so it was something that it was nice to be recognized as outside of a pool of people. So for my personal life, it was also looking for acceptance, which the association community has really embraced, and also family, that this was important to me.
Yeah.
For me, I would say it's kind of like my out of the box thinking. My dad always says, like, I don't even know what you do. Like, what do you do at an association? So trying to like explain it to him and like show him like this is the actual real career, and I'm gonna show you why. And telling him about the amazing things that you can do with associations, and like my community is very important for me. So being able to, outside of my job, outside of ASAE, just being able to give back, being able to mentor young girls to say, hey, if career is everywhere, you don't, have to be working for, a big company, but you can do something where you can give back every day. And I think that's very important for me. I'm very into just volunteering and making sure that people get what they need. So that was a big thing for me. Feeling rewarded by what I'm doing.
Yeah, I would tie into that. So I don't know if anyone saw it. Last Friday, I wrote an article for ASAE's Association Now Plus on rethinking a volunteer pathway. Clearly, it's something I'm really passionate about. But I was raised by two people that often chose their volunteer opportunities over their kids, which was great because I think, one, it taught me about the passion of volunteering, but also, two, the realities of like balancing life, things that you're passionate about and your family. And as somebody that has somebody who's about to be 6 running around my house, right, I'm constantly balancing those things. So I think for me, it was really critical, not only for finding myself and where I'm going to go professionally, but also then directly with how I operate with my own volunteers, right? So I think one of the things that I always struggled with was, as somebody who wanted to get involved as a young professional, what are those opportunities look like? Do they exist? Are they really hard to find? And the association I'm currently at, when I first started working here, there was board level and very senior level volunteer positions, and that was it, which alienates a large portion of your membership base. So it really drove me to really recreate what our volunteer opportunities look like at my association. It can't always be a whole year time commitment. It can't always only be for senior level folks. So I thank my folks for that. I don't think I was thanking them when I had to like lug myself to soccer practice on my own, but now I am.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that is such an important point. And I will admit that when I initially decided to get involved with ASAE, a lot of that was because I wanted to gain the additional perspective of what it's like to be someone with a 9-to-5 and to volunteer and to be on a committee and to work that into your regular schedule. And now I think it's totally changed the way that I look at my own volunteers in my association, my committee chairs, my vice chairs, the people that I manage. As Lizzie mentioned, the opportunities that you're providing for your members to volunteer, it just, because you volunteer, just gives you that like much needed perspective. So thank you for bringing that up. Let's see. There was a segue there. I missed it because my kid's crying.
Did you get the question from Jacob?
I did. Oh, thank you. That's what it was. Let me pull out the other form of technology that I've got at my fingertips. By the way, I got it. Hopefully nobody noticed. I did get a refill. I'm drinking the Sam Adams Rebel Juiced IPA, which is part of the Sam Adams IPA series. That's not important. So, question for our speakers, and I think this is a great one, is how intentional and organized do you have to be about your career path in the association community? And I'm thinking specifically in terms of like when you're at a conference or when you're connecting with people online, like how intentional should you be about what you want and how to get there? Thoughts from our panelists?
I don't know. I think Tom was talking earlier about saying yes to everything for a while. And I think there's tremendous value in that, because if you didn't, you miss a lot of things that you might have written off otherwise. So I think you want to have some idea of where you want to go, but I don't think it can be cast in stone, because I think you could miss a lot of what's out there. I know nothing about, or knew nothing about regulatory affairs when I took my position. I didn't have any concept of what it was. And I thought I wanted to get back into associations focused on education for a while, but having actually left that, thinking it was just kind of a small hop to get a different title and different experience, seeing how other associations work and seeing how other non-educational associations engage, I think it really opened my doors to thinking about things beyond that. So, I mean, you want to have some idea of where you're going, but I think sometimes too firm an idea, you could miss what's right in front of you. So, you know, it's not a good answer, but I think it's being open to the experiences that you have the opportunities to engage with.
And I agree, Lindsay. I think it's definitely important to have some idea, but I think it's also important to be able to step outside of your comfort zone. So sometimes we get stuck in boxes of what we've been doing, and we're kind of scared to take that leap to do something different. So I think being open to that, being open to being a bit fearless and jumping into something new because you never know what you're going to miss, like you said, Lindsay. So I definitely piggyback off that.
And
Yeah, I don't think it was a
I
bad
just
answer at all, actually. I think that was pretty spot on. Because the truth is that you want to be open to opportunities, but you want to do something that you care about going to work for every day, as you said, Natasha. So it's not necessarily always about a job, it's an opportunity. An opportunity can be a lot of things. It can be a job, it can be a volunteerism, it can be a mentorship. So I think it's just a matter of being open. I think that millennials are sort of known for being open to things, and being more concerned with work-life balance than any other generation before. So I think that that's in our strengths, but I think it's also important to know what your strengths are and be able to speak to them, because you don't want to start a job in something where you're weak or oversell yourself in an organization or in an interview for an organization where you're weak in that specific skill set. So you want to make sure that the opportunity is right for your skill set, but the volunteer type position is something that's right for something you want to build on.
Yeah, definitely. And if I might channel my internal Christina McCoy, who's my lateral mentor and current chair of the Young Professionals Committee.
She's my spirit animal.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Is that be intentional, right? Like have an idea of what you want to do and where you want to go. The tactic that you use or the path that you travel to get there doesn't matter. Only that you keep sight of what you're trying to do and you're intentional about it. And I'm going to jump back to Lindsay's comment earlier about like juggling, you have kids and careers and hobbies, and just like the four burners theory, if people haven't heard this before, is that you basically have the four burners in your life. You've got your professional or work life, you've got your family, you have your friends, and you have your health. And they can't all be burning at max capacity at all time. And you really have to figure out the best way to juggle them and to turn one down and turn one up as needed to match the goals that you set for yourself. So you can be intentional about it, but the way that you go about in achieving your goals, it doesn't matter as long as you have them in mind and you're set straight to get them. So we're coming up on the hour, and I wanted to throw this one last question around because it's fun and we'll end on a fun note. But my friends, my panelists, my speakers, what keeps you grounded, right? You go to work every day, you deal with the crazy commute, you deal with board members and calls and meetings. But what keeps you grounded? What keeps you through the day? Let's start with Natasha.
Okay, I have two things. So the first one is fun. I like to live by the mantra WWBD. What would Beyonce do? That's my first one. I love Beyonce. I'm a Beyonce fan. So that's one. But no, the serious one is in everything I do, I always make sure I'm living in purpose, on purpose. That's how I like to live my life. Everything I do, I want to make sure that it's, a goal behind it. I want to make sure that I'm helping people with it and it's purposeful. So that's me.
Yeah, Lindsay, what about you?
So as I said, I was a 6-year-old running around. So I drink a lot of tea, and I don't mean like a glass or two. I mean like 10 to 12 to maybe 20 glasses of tea a day. It's a sickness, right? I order it by the case from Amazon, but it does help. And again, I think as you were talking about these 4 burners, you can't be good at all of them at the same time. And I think that was a huge turning point for me. So I think I stopped beating up my body. I had to be the fastest person and do the most exercise and all of these things. And I've channeled the last year and just doing yoga and asking myself to do 10 minutes a day instead of some of these other kind of outrageous things. And I find it to be a good inner control and a good, calm down thing. So it's worked for me.
So let me ask you, are you an Earl Grey gal?
Until 11 o'clock. and I have to go to TCAP.
Wait, 11 a.m. or 11 p.m.?
11 a.m. I'm getting old, Paul. Maybe this might be my last call, but
We're all YPs at heart. Hey, what about you, Tom? What keeps you grounded in this crazy world?
So call me old-fashioned, but I will say that I'm not one of those people that's going to answer your email on the weekend. I'm also not one of those people that's going to answer your email after 5 o'clock. I refuse to do it because I need to be home. I need to be present at my house because my job is busy. I work a lot of weekends anyway when I'm traveling. I work a lot of nights. I need that balance. The other thing is, you see this picture? That's because I was in Portugal with my darling husband, enjoying a very nice vacation. And lavish vacations, something Beyonce would probably do, is something that we do. And my friends always say, "Oh, it must be nice how much you travel." Yeah, it's nice because I work my ass off for it. Excuse my language, but the truth is that I work really hard, and I want to be able to enjoy the time away from work. So when I am at home, I am completely checked out, and I think it also helps that I don't have cell phone service at my house very much. So the Wi-Fi is the only thing I rely on. Is that I think you need to make sure you have an employer that recognizes how important that is to you. Because if you think it's the job of your dreams, but your employer is going to make it very hard for you to have a work-life balance, it's not the right job for you. So luckily, I have had those positions. I think I actually said this at NextGen in that last kind of roundtable that we had for Lindsay and Tasha that were there. It's important that you figure out if the job is going to provide the home life that you also want. So vacations and checking out when necessary.
Yeah, that is sage advice with a capital S. Is you got to know when to turn it off. You really do. I'll tell you.
Indeed.
I turned the little notification off on the email icon where it says how many unread emails you have. That was the first thing to go.
Exactly. I don't need to know. I'll figure it out in the morning. I always know that no matter how much is going on, I will not let it fail. So even if something's going on at 7 p.m., tomorrow morning I can figure it out. I don't have to figure it out right now. It's going to ruin my entire night and not be able to sleep.
Yeah.
So it's not necessary.
Awesome. So that is just great advice. I know I've learned a lot from my colleagues and my peers and my friends. But Jada, what are you thinking?
I love this. It was really inspirational. I enjoyed hearing all your answers to the questions, and I also learned a lot. And Tom, I completely agree with you about not checking email, turning off, work-life integration, balance, all of that. It was nice seeing your faces again after NextGen.
Yes.
And thank you all for being available and willing to do this. I know it's tough after Monday after work. Signing on to a call like this. So thank you for being willing to do this.
Yeah,
Happy to. Thank you for organizing.
Thank you.
yeah, we didn't have to cook dinner, so anytime.
Yes.
So what do we think? Do we have any last words of advice, wisdom that we want to impart on our group of listeners and people that will watch this hopefully later?
Yeah, so just on Tom's point, there's a great concept of project time off, and I really encourage people to use their time. I am one of those people, the first few years at my last job, I lost vacation time at the end of the year because I felt like I couldn't leave, and it's one of the foolish things that you can do. So yeah, I would echo that again.
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to speak up. We have some amazing ideas, and sometimes you might feel like, oh, my idea sounds stupid, my idea sounds crazy, but sometimes that's the best idea. So as YPs, let's definitely speak up.
And think of how hard it is for all the associations we work for to engage millennials, but we are engaged millennials. And I think that we truly have a kind of a step up on the others that are not engaged. So don't be afraid to say yes, but make sure it's balanced within your 4 quadrants, as Christina would say.
I just
And
wanted
make sure
to.
that you're not chasing titles.
That's great, Tom. I just wanted to mention a comment from one of our attendees. I think it will make you all feel better. Jacob said, "You guys are slaying. Great job." So.
Yes.
Someone's paying attention. Yay. So what do you think? What's on tap next, Majeda? Do we have other topics in the series that we're gonna maybe delve into at a later date?
So we're going to be scheduling other Drinks and Discover sessions, and we hope you can attend. I think our next one will be sometime in the spring, and we're trying to get together people who are current CAEs to talk about how they prepared for the CAE exam, because we all know everyone's anxiously preparing for that exam, studying, so we'll get some good feedback there. And then sometime right before annual, have a Drinks and Discover session, and we'll try to do a teaser. Paul mentioned earlier, we do a Taste of event at every annual, and this year it'll be Taste of Chicago. So once those teasers get confirmed, we're going to do a Taste of panel and do a teaser for some of the individuals that will be hosting those events. So we hope you can join us for those.
Absolutely. Thank you, Majeda, for organizing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Majeda. So I think that wraps us up, right? Thanks everybody for joining, both speakers and those who are watching on the live link, and those who watch later. You know, we missed you, but we hope you crack open a drink when you watch this later.
Thank you, Paul.
Cheers. Oh, wait. Cheers.
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 Thanks, everyone. Have a happy Monday.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Bye. Thank
Take
you.
care.